All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started.
Okay.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I'm very excited to have as my guest today, Cari Kenzie. Cari, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
So as a survivor of the terrorist attack in 2013 at the Boston Marathon finish line, Cari Kenzie knows firsthand the devastation that comes in the aftermath of tragedy when truth is denied or hidden. This is the moment when her life journey and divine purpose collided. As an entrepreneur and owner of a multi-million-dollar company, she had to become the master of her healing and owner of her life. That led her to create Truth Seeker's Journey. Cari is a quantum healer, speaker, and coach who helps individuals navigate beyond drama, trauma, and self-sabotage by curating a curiosity that invokes clarity to uncover endless opportunities. She's also the founder and president of the Ripples of Change Foundation, a community at large of professionals in the coaching, wellness, consulting, and other supporting arenas who rally together for a common goal to help women find freedom and fullness in life. Cari, welcome to the podcast.
So great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
Before we get going, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Well, I am from Iowa and I am in Iowa currently. Originally from about 2.5 hours from where I'm residing now. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing the crazy winter?
Yes.
Are you?
Oh my goodness. Other than the fact that it is 42 degrees today. So I walked out to go run this morning and I thought it is quite balmy. That'll tell you just how cold it's been here the last few days.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this.
Okay.
What the heck happened? How'd you get here?
Such a great question, right? Well, I would say the moment that shifted everything for me really happened in 2014. And the reason why is because I had become very, very ill. And I navigated a number of different doctors and specialists. I'd gone to Mayo Clinic. I'd been all over the place to try and figure out what was going on. And a specialist that I had not seen before looked up online and tried to find the one that could maybe help me. I went in to see him and I sat down and he looked at my chart, he looked at my symptoms, and he took my heart rate and he asked me a question. He said, "Are you a runner? You've got a really low heart rate." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Look, I don't have anything that's going to be able to help you, but here's what I can tell you. And that's you're not depressed, because I've never known a runner to be depressed." And what became this lightning bolt moment for me was the fact that he saw me. Like in that moment, he didn't just see the symptoms. He didn't just see the chart. He actually saw me. And I realized I had to start doing that for myself.
What were your symptoms?
Oh my goodness. They ran the gamut of, I would have seizures standing up.
Oh my God.
I suffered from such severe insomnia that I would go nights without sleeping and was on 5 prescription sleep medications at one point to get me to sleep.
Whoa.
I had, turns out after a number of years, I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease and Hashimoto's, Epstein-Barr, multiple autoimmune conditions. I mean, it was like I was stacking it up like a deck of trading cards.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you go to all these people and then you finally go to this one person.
And he says, "You're not depressed," because that's what everybody had told me up to this point. So I would love to say everything changed overnight. It did not. It still took a couple of years for me to really understand the connection between what I had navigated through and thought I had dealt with and how it was assimilating in me as manifestations of physical symptoms.
Okay. Repeat that amazing sentence you just said. What does that mean?
So what happened? Basically, in 2016, I started to understand the mind-body connection. I started to understand how everything that I had navigated through, the things that I thought that I had dealt with. I just this last week ran across a note that I had put in my phone in September of 2013. And it says, the last few months have been hell. And I know we go through all of these things, but here I am. I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. And I really feel like I've come to an acknowledgement, or at least an understanding. And I've almost put to rest what happened in April 15th of 2013. You know what's funny about that? I wrote that note thinking that I had dealt with everything, that I'd really kind of come to the other side of it. And my health collapsed right afterwards because I hadn't.
To just give people context.
Yeah.
This is post.
So this is post Boston. So just to back up now, So all of this manifests, this comes to my awareness in 2014 of I have to start to see myself. I am the only one who's going to be able to heal. I am the only one who's going to be able to be my biggest advocate in moving forward. Like I have to be it. And so I started taking that trajectory. In 2016, I come to this awareness of, oh my goodness, I have to go back and address the things I've been through. And the main component, now, of course, this isn't the beginning of it, but the main moment for me was being at the finish line in 2013 when the terrorist attack happened in Boston.
When you say it wasn't the main thing, what were the other things?
Well, it was the thing that kind of was the culmination of all the trauma that I had experienced in life.
Okay.
Right. And so you find yourself in these moments. I found myself in this moment of being at the finish line, of walking away from that experience, having witnessed the things that I had witnessed, having gone through the emotions of the day that I had gone through, and I walked away as a spectator. I didn't own the opportunity to have had the experience because I wasn't injured. Which is generally the first question, still to this day, is one of the first questions that comes up when people hear that I was there. Were you hurt? Were you injured? And I know it comes from a place of curiosity and potentially a place of love, but really what it comes down to, how I perceive it, and many people do, is this inability to own an experience because somebody had it worse. So just to give context around that experience, I am in the medical tent at the finish line. The initial bomb goes off. I think, wow, I did not know this is how they celebrated. Like celebration. I didn't know they let off cannons. And then just within, as fast as that thought comes through, the next thought pops because the next explosion happens. The ground shakes. The tent feels like it's going to come down around me, and I catch a volunteer in the eyes. And immediately we knew that bombs had been set off.
Oh, wow.
You just intuitively knew. And so I stood up, and again, as quickly as all of this is happening, they are now starting to bring in the injured. And I look around, I see what's happening, and I said, I'm fine. I need to find my family. So I walk out of the tent. I look to my right, and there's nobody there. This is Runner's Alley. It has emptied. I look to my left where the bombings has occurred, and all I see is chaos. And I see a line of yellow jackets, volunteers, that are screaming at me, run as fast as you can. And I turn and I take off running, and I don't know how far and I don't know how fast. I don't remember ever stopping running, but I eventually did. And I eventually found my family. And the next day when I went back down to observe what had happened and to pick up my bag, I was standing at the end of Boylston Street, and a reporter came up and he asked me a question. And he said, where were you yesterday? Can you tell me about your experience? Can you tell me where you were? And there was a voice inside of my head that said, it is not your story to tell. And I never looked at him, and I turned and I walked away. And that's where I say I got on the plane as a participant, but I got off a spectator, and I went right back into my business because that's what you do. After I had gone through a traumatic experience, after many people have something like that happen, you feel like if anybody sees any kind of weakness, everything is going to fall apart. You'll lose everything. And so I went back to work. I watched the news with the rest of my staff. As soon as they were captured, I went about my business. And that's where, having held that in and having gotten up and brushed it off, became a manifestation of symptoms within me that became debilitating to me over the course of the next few years, until I finally was able to go back and address that situation. And again, like I say, that wasn't the start of it, because there's many people who have navigated through experiences and don't have that kind of traumatic response like I did. Many people do. But it comes from the fact that I had experienced other traumas in my life. I had experienced things as a child, right?
Right. And also, it doesn't matter.
And it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what other people do. We're talking about you. Each experience things in our own way.
Exactly.
And it's very easy, I think, when we're talking about trauma. Well, this person had X trauma. It's much worse than my bullying. That we can't get caught in that.
No, and that is, I think, such a disservice to the self and a disservice to humanity when we do that.
Right.
Because then we hold on to the traumas and we become the ripple of the trauma. Yeah.
All right. So crazy intense.
Yeah.
How do things unfold for you? You said you went back to work, and so you were working at this during this time.
Yeah. So I owned my business. I owned a marketing agency at this time. And I went straight back into work. I went from running marathons to not being able to walk up a flight of stairs without being assisted. Again, I started having seizures standing up. My health completely failed.
Did you connect the dots?
Not at all.
Anyone connect the dots?
No.
Interesting. Okay.
Isn't that fascinating? There was no connection to what I had experienced and what I was symptomatically feeling, because I think there's still a realm that feels as though it's a separate thing. Like the physical manifestation of symptoms is because you are physically ill. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with the mental, emotional, or spiritual capacity or things that we have navigated and experienced.
So you start to become symptomatic. Mm-hmm. What happens? Do you start freaking out? Do you start seeking help? What do you do?
Yeah. So at that point, that's when I started going to every specialist and every doctor that you could possibly imagine, and, ran through the gamut of everything. I did Western.
You're living in Boston at this time?
No, I live in Des Moines. Yeah.
Okay.
I had just traveled out there. Yeah. So I'm back in Des Moines. I've received, and eventually I ended up receiving a number of diagnoses. I went through the Western medical model. I went through the holistic medical model. I would get better, and then I would get worse, and then I would feel a little better, and then it would come back in. And like I say, in 2016, I found myself at a conference, and I just had an opening through neurofeedback and some of the biohacking technologies, to start to see things from a different perspective. And I was introduced to a gal, and I joke, it's, as I'm there, I'm suffering from this insomnia. I know I've got this chronic Lyme disease, and these are the types of things I'm looking to overcome. Again, I've not made the connection. Mm-hmm. And this gal says to me, she goes, I've got a gal who's helped me out a lot. You should give her a call. I'm like, I don't care who it is or what they do. I will do anything. Right. So I call this gal up, and I joke all the time. I get her on the phone, and, she's like, well, tell me what's going on. So I give her kind of a lay of the land of what's happening. And I joke that she says, well, so tell me about your childhood, which is honestly not how it went, but that's how it felt like it went. And I remember thinking, I have Lyme disease. Like, why are you asking me about my childhood? Right. But it started to open an awareness within me that there has to be some form of connection. Wow. And I went down a deep dive into epigenetics and neurosciences and quantum physics and all different types of energy healing modalities. I really wanted to know and learn as much as I possibly could if there was any connection between these two elements, so that I could truly heal and overcome from them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And that's what I did for a number of years.
And did things start to quote unquote work? Did you start?
Oh my goodness. My insomnia was gone overnight.
By doing what?
By finding the connection. And this is what I do now when I'm working with clients. I have a way of being able to understand the patterns that we have created in order to understand how to be able to pull the thread of that pattern so that we stop what it is that we're currently doing or the reality that we're currently manifesting in order to be able to shift and do something different. And what I did was I found the belief that I had been holding on to, the pattern that had been created in me. Once I found that and I was able to get back to the source of it, which again, Yes, went back to Boston, but landed back in childhood. Once I knew that and was able to pull the thread of it, the insomnia was gone instantaneously. It left me overnight.
All right. So let's put a magnifying glass on that. What was the belief that you had?
Boy, that's such a great question. I believe at that time there was a lot of inadequacy, unworthiness that were coming up within me that needed to be addressed. And yes, we go back and we look at the trauma and we navigate through that experience. We're always looking at the emotions of it, because the emotions of it beyond the experience are where the true healing happens. Mm-hmm. And so when I was able to find those, that unworthiness, that feeling of being inadequate, the lack of safety and security that I felt, safety and security being key in that realm, and like I say, followed it back into childhood and found that pattern and pulled that thread, it was gone.
So how did, or to what degree did the experience at the marathon impact this belief system you had? Did it perpetuate it? Did it?
Amplified it. That's what I would say. Amplified it. You know, we come into this life to learn many, many lessons. And I believe that every experience we have is an opening to an opportunity to be able to learn something. And we will create patterns in order to be able to learn things. We see this so often in other people, and sometimes it's so much easier to see in other people where you go, wow, I really wish they'd learn their lesson, because then they could stop doing that, right? But we never really take that and flip it around and look at ourselves. And so when we have those patterns and when we do not address them in the way they need to, then what happens is it becomes amplified. And all of a sudden, that little inkling becomes the 2x4. That little sharp pain becomes the bomb that was set. And so what I say when I'm giving my keynote speeches is that my experience is an extreme experience, but is an extreme example of everyday occurrences. We all have these little things, these little bombs that go off in our daily lives. Right. Now, we can either address them, look at them, find the pattern to be able to release them, or we can pack it up and put it aside and think, I think I've dealt with that, or I will address it later.
Drink it away and eat it away.
Yeah, eat all the things that we do in order to be able to distract and mask. But eventually, it will come forward and it will grab your attention in a way that you may not be ready for. You might not be prepared for. I know I wasn't, but I will also say it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Very interesting. I mean, it almost seems like, and I don't want to mitigate your experience, but you were a professional person. You seemed had your own business.
Yep.
Doing the right thing and getting the help you need, and just on and on and on. These people, a lot of people just weren't able to connect those dots. And that one person asked you that one question, what was your childhood like? And it just resonated with you.
It just resonated. Yeah. And I think it was the combination of the two comments. It was what was your childhood like? And it was, I've never known a runner to be depressed. Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to the self. It all comes back to pulling away the layers of everything that we have been taught, of all the experiences that we have had, of the trauma, the drama, whatever you want to call it, that has been endured over a lifetime in order to get to the truest form of self, so that we can truly honor who it is that we are. We can step fully into our purpose, and we can move forward in the wholest way, the most fulfilled way that we possibly can. But again, it comes into like truly being able to see yourself in those situations in order to be able to heal from them.
So you started getting better, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Talk about that journey and when you got to the point of, you know what, I want to do this. I want to help people in this way. Talk about that.
Yeah. So like I say, I took a deep dive from about 2016 up until 2019, actually, all the way through 2019. In the beginning of 2019, I actually received a message from a peer who offered to purchase my business. And intuitively, I just felt like it was the right thing to do. I did it, and it was the best decision I ever made. And it opens the opportunity for me to be able to do other things. So there was that opportunity that showed itself to me. But as I continued to go through my own healing journey, as I continued to be able to heal myself physically and mentally, I was able to shift the perspective of how I saw the world. Mm-hmm. And it opened in me a compassion and a deep love, an ability to be able to see the world through the lens of a deeper truth, so that the judgments and the biases were all set aside. And when I started to see that in myself and was able to experience that healing, I was then also able to see it within my children.
So,
and then
hang on a second. So, okay, biases, and what do you, be specific? What do you mean of these biases you had?
So often we're always looking at the world through the lens of our own trauma. That's how we look at the world. And when we start to release and clear that trauma, you have the ability to be able to see the world from a higher truth. You have the ability to be able to see people without the judgment, but to see them for truly who they are, to be able to understand that they are also navigating through experiences, to know that and to not get caught in it. So the experience that somebody else is having doesn't have to be my experience. I have an awareness to be able to observe it, also to know if I have part of it and if I don't. So I have an ability to be completely unbiased in situations. It's also what has granted me the ability to be the amazing healer that I have the opportunity to be in order to see the patterns, because the traumas have been healed. I'm not seeing life through that lens, and I have the ability to have an incredible compassion for things that other people have been through. There's no judgment. There's just love.
Right. Okay. I appreciate you articulating that. So you got to a point where I want to start working with people in this way. And
I healed. I watched my children heal without me having to do anything for them, but just simply by proxy through me. And then when I saw how everything that I was doing not only had the ability to be able to shift me, but it also had the ability to shift generations, I thought, this is something that needs to be done. This is something that people need to learn how to do. I don't want to walk in and have to be somebody's guru. I want to help people to navigate it and then teach them how to be able to shift the perspectives for themselves, because we have an amazing gift as people. We have an amazing gift in humanity to be able to share the opportunity to navigate belief systems, to clear up the trauma in a way that benefits everybody. And that's why I do it.
Yeah. Okay. So you work with people. So what kind of people do you work with?
I work with entrepreneurs. I work with world leaders. I work with those who are looking to make movement, shifts, changes in the world, and who have navigated through potentially some form of experience or trauma that seems to be getting in the way of their ability to be able to see the path forward, to know the fullness of the mission that it is that they're wanting to bring into the world, and to release the self-sabotaging behavior that tends to get us caught on that hamster wheel as well. So those are the individuals that I personally work with. And again, it's people who have navigated through some form of trauma, people who have just had a hard time. Really, trauma is just anything that's shaken the confidence in any way, where you feel like you've lost a little bit of trust for yourself, in order to be able to push everything forward.
So can you give us an example of how you work with someone? I mean, obviously maintaining confidentiality,
of course.
Someone has come to you and they're like, what?
Well, it could be a number of different things. Sometimes people come and they know that the trauma that they've been through, and they're like, look, I've experienced this thing and I need to understand it because I feel like it's getting in my way. Okay, perfect. So the first questions that I ask are really kind of around the experience, but not just the experience, that single source situation that they're experiencing, but also to what else is happening in life, right? Because it's going to show up everywhere. And I want to be able to see the pattern or the thread. And then we look at the emotions. So what is that bringing forward in you? How are you feeling around that situation? And maybe where has that emotion shown up before? And we start to follow that back. And through a form of curiosity that I help people understand, we have the ability to get back to the source. Once we get back to this is where it started, generally in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it
So
started.
how was your childhood? What was your
Right,
childhood
exactly,
like?
right. We don't start there. That's generally where we end up. We pull the thread. All we need to do is we need to understand, why has this pattern been created?
Right.
So that we can teach the subconscious, we can teach the mind something a little bit different. Okay, well, if that's what you believed, what is it that you would like to believe now?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just finding that sweet spot of the theta brainwave, because if that's how we were programmed as children, then that's how we deprogram as adults.
Oh boy, this is good stuff, man. I'm just like thinking about all my programming, childhood programming that's jacked me up.
Oh, goodness.
You have this, I don't want to say way about you, but this sense about you, this vibe about you, that you've really not just taken what's happened to you, but you've you've taken the experiences that have happened to you and have been able to seemingly use that to engage with others in a very positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this has always been my path, this ability to be able to find those source solutions.
Really?
To be, yeah. Even in the business that I own, it was a marketing agency. And that's what I did, when I was working with clients. So it's always kind of been in the nature to find that source. And now to be able to find it and to bring the clarity forward. I mean, it's such an amazing gift. And even for me to be able to look back at Boston the way that I do, and there's still elements that pop up now and then. I would not say that I am a master of the life. I'm just constantly in mastery, right? So I am constantly working and I'm constantly perceiving and looking at things in a different way. And I think the mastery that we want is really just in the awareness that we create so that we have the opportunity to be able to shift. And that's the gift. That's the gift that was given through that experience. And that's the gift that I want to have the opportunity to be able to give other people as they navigate through their own journeys.
The gift is what? Be able to see? Is
an awareness and a curiosity. To have an awareness, to be able to see things beyond the situation that you're currently in, and then to bring an element of curiosity into it that allows you to be able to navigate the mind maze, to understand where that limitation is coming from.
How, for our listeners here, how would you say this is different than number one, therapy, and number two, the Western medical model?
Oh boy. That's such a great question. I was just talking about this earlier today, actually. Oh, right. So of course I was. The difference between what I do, I'll start with what I do and the Western medical model, is that in the realm of quantum healing, what we are looking at is we are looking at the entirety of the being. So we are looking at the physical, the emotional, the spiritual aspect of that individual. And instead of looking at it as a source solution or a symptom solution, we're looking to get to the source. And through that, we're looking at consciousness. We're looking at the energy in order to be able to understand that so that we can truly shift that. And then we can penetrate from the mental, emotional, and spiritual down into the physical. So that would be one major way I'd say that this differentiates from the Western medical model, because the Western medical model is looking at the physical being. Right. And that's it. That's what I experienced. I'm going to look at what's happening with you physically, and then I'm going to give you whatever treatment I think is going to be able to help with the symptoms that you're experiencing. And in a lot of ways, I think that traditional therapies do the same thing. We can have the conversation around to the conscious awareness. But when we're having the conversation around to the conscious awareness, all we are able to do is to perceive what you are consciously knowing or experiencing. And what truly needs to be healed are all of the things that are sitting subconsciously. And when I have those conversations, because I had gone down those routes as well, when I go in and I'm having the conscious conversation of what it is that I've experienced, I'm consistently having that conscious conversation. And therefore, I am reliving that every single time I go in, which is why we tend to need those traditional therapies longer and more often, as opposed to, okay, so we're going to have this conversation. I want to understand the experience that you've been through, but I only want to understand it to a place where we can then use that as a catalyst to be able to open the subconscious mind to see what's really happening.
And how do you do that? How does that subconscious mind opened?
The easiest thing for people to do is just close your eyes. I mean, if you're sitting and having a conversation, all you need to do, and this is what I do with my clients, is I just have you sit and close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you questions. And when I'm asking those questions and you're asking that question of yourself, I'm not looking for your mind to answer. I'm looking for your heart to respond. I don't want you to consciously think about it. I want you to allow it to come up within you, because it's all there. So often, though, we dismiss it. We dismiss it as being, oh, that's fantasy, or that's just made up, or there's no way that it could be that, as opposed to trusting and getting curious. When I tell my clients, I don't care if it comes up as a pop song. I don't care if it comes up as a color. I don't care if it comes up as a line in a movie. It's showing you in the way that you can understand. So let's get curious about that.
Right.
But that's where we too easily dismiss.
I want to remind everyone that I'm speaking with Cari Kenzie. Now, before we were talking, well, first of all, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, Cari?
Website.
Okay.
CariKenzie.com. And then most active socially on Instagram.
Okay. And before we kind of jumped on here, you said you had started a foundation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So launched a nonprofit at the end of this year, Ripples of Change Foundation. And the essence of that foundation is really empowering women to be able to navigate through life's trauma, the ripple of trauma. So I have a huge heart for those that have experienced things outside of the impact zone, but have been impacted by it. I sat in that. I was in the medical tent. I wasn't directly affected by it, but so many carry the burden of trauma after having been caught in the ripple, because they don't feel like they have the opportunity to own that experience. And so there's an education and advocacy around this that I am looking to bring forward. We are looking to record a documentary in April at the 10-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon to speak specifically to the ripple and the community at large who experienced that, and how in that realm of that ripple to trauma, without the healing, it continues to ripple out, and then will create the generational trauma that is carried forward. So really looking to bring the education and advocacy to that, but then also to bring together a community of therapists to be able to work with those who don't have the opportunity to be able to afford or don't know where to find these services in order to be able to get the healing that they need.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. You're pretty inspiring, man. Really.
Thanks.
Yeah. Just what you've done with what's happened to you. Not everyone does that.
No.
Right?
It's true. Yeah.
Let me just, before we go here, what do you feel it is about you, Cari, that allows you to do this work the way you do it? You've used a couple of times the word gift and so forth, but
the thing that there's a couple of things that come to mind. One of them is, and I'm told this quite often by my clients, an incredible amount of compassion, where it just feels like I hold an amazing space for people to be able to have a conversation. So that's one thing. Second to that, I would say specifically from a trauma healing standpoint, I am relentless about healing my own stuff, right? This is not only a career for me, it is a passion for me, but it is also something I live on a daily basis. And I feel as though that if you're going to step into this realm to be able to navigate and help other people shift and really be able to heal from their own trauma, you have to do the work. Because when you do that, then you have the ability to have a curiosity without judgment. You have an ability to be open yourself intuitively, to really be able to see and have an awareness of what's going on for another individual. And those are the key components for me, I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cari, love to have you back as we get into the new year. And just thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.
Okay.